Many people don't know this about me, but I'm deathly afraid of bats. To help me with my phobia, I did some research on the creatures. Did you know that most bats live less than 20 years? However, there's at least 6 known species that'll live more than 30 years. Probably has to do with their contract with Satan. Also, bats are the only flying mammals. Now, are bloodthirsty demons from hell considered mammals? Like cats, bats clean themselves. How else do they get the human blood out of their fur? Bats! On this episode of Attack of the Killer Podcast.
Attention planet Earth and beyond. Stay tuned for Attack of the Killer Podcast. 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 Time for the show. Yay.
What?
Welcome, one and all, to Attack of the Killer Podcast. I am your host, Insane Mike, and this episode is 334, and it's going to be absolutely batty.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go.
Because we are going to be talking about the scariest topic we've ever done. Bats.
I was hoping this would come up.
What?
Your fear.
I have an irrational fear of bats. I really do.
And yet, who's your favorite comic book hero?
Yet, I love Batman.
That's weird, right?
I love horror
But they're
movies.
so cute.
There's a lot of bats in horror movies. I'm a walking contradiction. If this is your first time listening to the show, Attack of the Killer Podcast is a horror movie podcast where a group of friends get together with a topic and discuss films within that topic. We're just friends hanging out, talking about bats, so there may be spoilers. Now, I also want to take a moment and ask you to join our Patreon. When you become part of the Attack of the Killer Podcast family, it's called being an attacker. And when you become an attacker, you get access to all kinds of perks and bonus content. For example, you get our bonus episodes. We cover a wide range of topics on the bonus episodes. You usually get more insight on the hosts of the show during the bonus episodes, like our next topic that's coming up, where we talk about hot dogs and the best way to eat them, or our favorite meals with hot dogs. You want to know what mine is? You're going to have to become an attacker and listen for yourself next week. You also get our YouTube shows, and I highly recommend checking out the video updates, the series that Brian's been doing, the Public Domain Storytime series, where Brian Clark, in his deep, rich, soothing voice, reads from the book King Kong. I will watch those while I go to sleep
need
at night.
to do another one of. I'm kind of behind on those. Also, my voice is not rich or soothing right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit more sandpapery this time, but that's okay. It's still nice and glorious and
Deep.
Yeah.
Sexy phlegm, right?
Yes. With as far as content goes, that's just barely the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the stuff that you get as becoming an attacker. You can even get shout-outs on the show like these attackers right here.
Timothy Linner, Roman Doppelfeld, Larry Watanabe, Brett J. Royer, Seth Key, Jessica Irish, Chris Cook, Brian Godsell, Stefan Sitter, Brandy Moore, Andrew Mahler, Rodney Dean Hutchinson Jr. the Fourth Esquire, Carmen DeHague, Abraham Ariano, Andrew Battler, Casey Kelderman, Tony Miller, Mike Clayton, Rose Talashoma, Abe Kirshner, Lisa Cavalier, Holly Berg, Bill Fisher, Greg Dedrick, Sam Lenz, Garth Jacobson, Brett White, Tiffany DeWeese, Scott Reebsman, and Chris Collins.
See, still sounds rather soothing to me. Yeah. You can be on that list too. All you got to do is go to jointheattackers.com. Pick the tier that best suits you to get the content your heart desires. Again, that's jointheattackers.com. And now, it's time to introduce you to the podcast crew. He's worried that his pet bat would never learn echolocation, but eventually it just clicked. That's a science joke, everybody. Tad!
Hey guys, thanks for listening through echolocation.
He got attacked in the park by a guy with a bat. He wasn't so much horrified as he was impressed on how well he trained it. Jason!
Oh my. Hey everybody, thanks for listening and glad you're here.
He got bit by a tick and he ate a bat at the same time. So we had Corona with lime. Brian.
Oh, God. Hello, everyone.
Jeez.
Okay, so.
We're canceled.
Again.
But before that, let's find out what we've all been watching. It's time to turn it over to Tad with what we watched.
Well, my segment is going to have to be its own episode because as of recording this, the Academy Awards are this weekend. And if you're listening to this, it's already happened. And shameless shout out to First Time is back with a new episode, the Oscar special. So listen to it and see how many picks we get right. But anyways, Brian, what Oscar picks have you not watched?
Actually, I did watch one of them. I watched The Conclave.
Hell yeah.
That was pretty good. I mean, great
Pope on a
performance.
rope.
You're right. The twist at the end really kind of bumped it up for me. I wish they had pushed on that a little harder. I feel like that was the movie's strongest point, and they barely even acknowledged. Like most of it was just the scheming and behind the scenes.
drama.
But, I mean, yeah, but I mean the performances are so good that it was fine. But continuing the theme of just trying to do everything I can to absolutely ruin my mental health, I watched another nuclear hell movie called The Last War. This is a Toho movie from 1961. It's got Akira Takarada and Frankie Sakai, and it's not nearly as disturbing as Threads. It's a lot more of like a family drama up until the bombs go off, and some of the drama is undercut a little bit because the idea is it takes place in 1961, so it's after World War II. Japan is rebuilt, everything's going okay, and then the alliance and the I forget what the other group is called, but basically it's NATO and the Warsaw Pact, right, are jockeying back and forth, and it's Cold War tensions, and there's several scenes of near misses where one side almost launches a nuke, but then they realize it's a mistake and they dial it back. But as with with all Showa Toho movies and Japanese movies in general, a lot of the white actors are just like insurance salesmen and marketing reps and stuff who just happen to be working in Japan, and they were like, hey, we need a white person on the screen, you come do this. So they're not really actors. So like all of the white characters are pretty awful, but Frankie Sakai, he's the hero in Mothra, the reporter, and he was mostly known as a comedic actor, but he gives this fantastic dramatic. It's kind of like how everyone was surprised over here when Jim Carrey turned out to be a good dramatic actor. It's kind of the same thing. Like you see him and go, man, this guy should have done more than just comedy. And maybe he did. He could have done a lot of movies that never got fan subbed over here. But let's see. I watched Disembodied. That was one I picked up from Vinegar Syndrome. That's a weird, kind of like if like Eraserhead era David Lynch made a alien invasion body horror movie for $3. Mm-hmm. It's shot on 16 millimeter, really trippy, really weird. And let's see. Oh, we saw The Monkey.
Sold.
Yeah.
I didn't love it like most people. See, I liked it, but it felt like it was just trying way too hard to be quirky. Like it's kind of like a Final Destination type of thing. Like all the deaths are really darkly hilarious. But then you have and a friend of mine described it as it was like a feature-length episode of Portlandia with a killer monkey, which made sense to me because I don't like Portlandia either. But like, there's too many just quirky side characters who are, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. And then I'll wrap up with, this is a weird one, and I have no idea why it was on the Criterion collection, but we found this on Max. It's called I Was a Teenage Zombie. Mike, have you seen this one?
Yes, it's been a while, but yeah, I remember that one.
It was made, it was the only movie by the guy who directed it, but he worked in other capacities on other movies. Like I think he was a sound tech on Toxic Avenger or something like that. And some other connections, and there's a character, like a background character named Lloyd Kaufman. It's a little nod to the guy who gave him his break, but it's fine. I guess it wasn't funny enough to be a good comedy, and it wasn't gory enough to be a good horror movie, but I got a few chuckles out of it. So
It kind of has that like early trauma vibe, only way watered down. Just like you
yeah,
said,
yeah,
not a
like
lot
a
of gore, not
very
a lot of-
diet trauma.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. It's lifetime trauma.
I like
yeah.
So, yeah.
So
and
you've watched-
after I watched The Last War, I had to go to one of my feel-good movies. I rewatched Dolomite Is My Name.
Hell yeah.
Oh, nice.
That and Ed Wood are probably like my two
Your palate
go-to,
cleansers.
like just like feel-good movie. I know they're super romanticized versions of those stories because I'm pretty well versed in the actual stories of those characters and filmmakers. But God damn it, I just love those movies so much.
Excellent. How about you, Mike? What have you watched?
Okay, so Brandy and I have been doing a lot of shopping around for physical media, like super cheap stuff, and found a movie that I've been looking for a while. I was pretty excited on DVD. It's called Look from 2007. It's directed by Adam Rifkin. I'm a pretty big Adam Rifkin fan and been trying hard to see his entire filmography, but some of his stuff has been hard to track down. This was one of them for me, so I was pretty stoked to find a copy of it. The film follows several different characters over a course of a week, and some of which kind of tie together, or they at least cross paths with each other. The thing that's interesting about this film, though, is that it's all done through like surveillance camera footage and like cell phone cameras and stuff like that. So it's just all in the POV of like the eyes on the world kind of thing. And it starts off, kind of, it reminds me a lot of his other film, Shooting the Warwicks, where it kind of starts off like lighthearted and comical in some bits, but then just gets darker and darker and darker as the film goes, and has such a dark ending. And watching this one really kind of made me realize that I feel like Adam Rifkin's films, and why I love them, is I feel like they kind of, I'd say they're more than just a blend of different genres, but they almost transcend genre in a way, because it's really hard to group his films in a particular category, especially a film like this where the tone just takes such a dark turn at some point. I mean, it's still, you could still, if you like dark comedy, it's still kind of comedic in the fact that just as dark as it gets is just so over the top. But I loved it, and it's another one of his films that it just reassures me of my love of his films. But I also realized too, he does a lot of, it's kind of a trope of his, of doing films about like watching other people, or it'd be about like movies about making movies, or like a lot of voyeurism happens in his films. And yeah, anyway, I'll move on. I only watched one other thing, and it's tied to the topic of this episode. This was one I almost picked for the episode, so I watched it before I made our final choices here, and I kind of wish I would have probably picked this one instead of some of them on this episode. But I watched Chosen Survivors from 1974.
Oh, I've not seen that, but I really want to.
I really liked it. It's in full on YouTube. It's directed by Sutton Royley. After being selected at random by a computer, a collection of strangers are sent to an underground bomb shelter after the threat of a nuclear attack. However, their highly advanced shelter has been overridden with vampire bats. And one of the things I wish I would have picked this one for this topic is I found this one, the bat stuff, creepier and more disturbing than all the three other movies that we did pick for the show combined. Because one of the things that really got
good with my theme of watching nuclear terror movies.
Yeah, I mean that kind of takes a back seat to the whole bat subplot, the whole bat plot of the whole thing, really. But I mean, it's a little slow in certain bits, but when the bat attack stuff happens, I feel like it's really worth it because it's in this underground shelter. There's no way out, and everybody's in like on these their own little separate rooms and stuff, and the bats are getting in. So when the bats attack happens, it's so claustrophobic. It's like one person in this isolated room, and bats are just coming from everywhere, and it really kind of creeped me out. One of the things also that I really liked about this movie, and I love about sci-fi future stories from the 70s, is you notice how like in the 1970s movies about the future, everything is so bright and white and sterile. You know, it feels like once we hit Blade Runner territory, the future is always like so dark and bleak. But in the 70s, everything's just so bright and
Like Logan's Run.
Like
That's
Logan's
what I
Run's
always
a
think
great
of
example.
when I think of like 70s future.
yeah,
THX.
yeah. THX, very white and just yeah. I love movies from the 70s anyway, but movies from the 70s that take place in the future are awesome.
It's funny that like the 70s sci-fi, like you were saying, well, I mean, up until at least a certain point when you get into things like Soylent Green, which is pretty bleak.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like you're saying, a lot of the 70s sci-fi still has the sheen left over from the 50s and 60s where everything's very clean and hopeful, whereas the horror and exploitation movies from that decade are the grossest, grimiest fucking things ever committed to film. So you have this great dichotomy of this still kind of starting to turn a little dystopian, but still pretty hopeful and bright sci-fi, and then just repugnant.
I just
horror.
I just feel like that decade is the decade of throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks when it came to cinema. It's like all bets were off when it came to the 70s. Everything played it safe up until like the 60s, and the 60s was kind of dipping their toes in a lot of that, trying new things, trying outside of the box thinking and stuff, but like the 70s, man, just went for it. Anyway, that's what I watched.
There's a great episode of Action Boys podcast, and the Action Boys obviously just do action movies, but they dedicated a whole episode where one of the hosts would name a movie, and the two other co-hosts had to guess if the movie was now in the past or the future. Like, so if a movie was set in like 2018, but it was made in like the 60s, they had to try to think of like when that movie was set. And that was a lot of fun listening because it's like you don't think about that until you watch it. And yeah. Anyways, Jason, what have you watched?
Oh, I've got to watch a bunch of things this time around. The first one is from the same director who did The Shallows and House of Wax and our commentary film, The Orphan, or just Orphan. Go see that at screamfactory.com. But talking about the movie Carry On, as recommended by Ted.
Hell yeah.
It was freaking amazing. Taron Egerton is the star. Jason Bateman's the heel, who was fantastic. It's a edge of your seat as edge of your seat films can be. It's on Netflix. It was fantastic. I loved it. I got to see Wolfman. I really loved that a lot.
Cool.
I
Good.
don't know. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I guess I get it, but man, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Other than, well, I was just sad because, like,
It's a sad story.
it's a sad story. This guy loved his kids, man, and
I'm
God
with
dang.
you, man. The thing I didn't like about it is that I wanted more of it. It felt too rushed. Like,
It
give me
did.
some more time in that world with those characters.
Yeah.
You get like what? Like not even 12 hours. So
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. It does happen awfully quickly, the timeline of things, but that's holds us in there, and I agree with all that. But yeah, I loved it, man. I thought it was a great little story. I watched The Wild Robot. That was amazing and sweet.
Yeah.
I loved it.
that's an Oscar movie from last year.
I did it. Oscars.
Didn't
Just a year
win, but
behind.
Oh,
Yeah.
The Monkey.
No, Wild Robot is this year actually. So I was thinking
I
of
thought it was.
Love and Robots is what I was thinking
Oh,
of from last
yeah.
year.
Yeah, the Wild Robot was great.
Yeah, visually stunning.
Yes. The Monkey, loved it. Thought it was over the top, super fun. I've just been telling people that to me it reminds me of John Dies at the End. Just that dark comedy to it, and that's what I kind of liked about it. Because I think most people go in not expecting it to be so funny.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
the trailer, to me was a big clue that it's something that can't be
And
taken too seriously.
The
When you
marketing campaign.
see a guy running down the street in broad daylight, set a fire. It was hilarious to me when I saw it in the trailer.
A woman pushing a stroller on fire.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, pushing a
Yeah,
stroller
yeah.
on fire.
Yeah.
but the gore was great and fun, and the score, and yeah. And lastly, another one. I'm finally glad I got to maybe my favorite on here. Another edge of your seat thriller. With one of my favorite actors, Jim Cummings, talking about The Last Stop in Yuma County.
Hell yes.
Finally got to watch that, and I freaking loved it.
Yes.
Gosh.
And he's doing the new Evil Dead movie, the director is.
Really? Francis Gillespie?
One of the two. Yep.
Oh, man. That's cool. Richard Brake was great in it. It's another sad movie. But it's so intense. You're just caught in a heist with just standoff after standoff after. You just like, how was anyone getting out of this? And you won't imagine what happens. So
Yeah, it's a good whodunit, one location. Mike would probably love it too.
yeah, for that for sure.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And Jim Cummings getting to be a little different than who he's been in movies lately. So
Not a cop.
not a cop. He was not. He was pretty. I mean, he's always kind of squirmy, I guess. But
Yeah.
man, I loved it. And that's what I watched.
Excellent.
What can you talk about, Tad?
Oh, I can talk about a lot of things. I watched Hard Eyes in theaters.
Yes.
Really liked it. It was cool to see on a second weekend of a movie. This theater, it was like people had to sit in the front row. It was so packed. It did a double feature, which I haven't done in a long time. We saw Hard Eyes and then followed it up with Love Hurts, which was a lot of fun too. A great double feature on Valentine's Day. I will knock out some of these movies because I continued my Oscar marathon. I watched Wicked, Nickel Boys, good. Sing Sing, fucking great. I'm selecting which ones I'll talk about so you don't just recap my 3-hour Oscar episode. But Sing Sing was really fantastic. The lead actor is nominated for an Oscar. It's about a group of prisoners who start their own drama club, and they put on a play in the prison. So I'm watching this movie and I'm like, this is really interesting. I wonder if it's based on a true story. I'm going to watch all these movies, so I'm not going to even look them up. Start watching it. Really cool, really emotional. Jason probably cry. Loved it. And then at the end, they're doing the credits, and it's the credit where they show the person and they have their name next to him. And the lead actor who's up for an Oscar, I'm stalling so I can get his name here. He is the only one who's an actor. The rest of them are the actual prisoners that it's based on. Coleman Domingo. He's up for the Oscar, but I think there is another actor, maybe Paul Raci. You guys know Paul? He's like a character actor.
Paul. No.
You'd recognize him if you saw a picture of him, sort of balding character actor, creepy, probably in a bunch of horror stuff. But anyways, they're going through the credits, and it's this guy as himself. Yeah, Clarence Macklin as, himself. And I'm like, holy shit, it's sort of cool because these are the prisoners who started their own drama club as actors. Then they get to be in an Oscar-nominated movie. Just really cool story. Saw The Apprentice. The last thing I want to watch is a fucking movie about Donald Trump. But Sebastian Stan does a great job of making him just as hateable. The Monkey, I fucking loved it. So much fun. Laughed my ass off. There's one scene towards the end I didn't get, but I won't spoil it because I don't think Mike's seen it, right, Mike?
I have not.
Okay. I asked Rod about it. He gave me some philosophical answer. And I'm like, You just fucking Googled that, Rod. Sorry. I watched the new Netflix documentary, American Murder, Gabby Petito. That was infuriating and sad. I watched The Brutalist. I did not think I would love a 4-hour movie about a heroin-addicted carpenter or a architect. But A24, motherfuckers got me. Has in theaters, it had a 15-minute intermission. On the streaming version, it's like a 2-minute intermission. I'm like,
That's because in
you
streaming
can pause
you
it.
have a pause button.
I know. But it's sort of an interesting way to do that. But it was Adrian Brody, fantastic. There's some controversy about this one because he did not get his the language down.
The AI, right?
So they AI'd some of his voice when he's speaking like Romanian or something, and it's like, I don't know. Some producer or something during a Q&A shouldn't have said something. He said it, and now it could possibly ruin his Oscar chances. But, you got caught. Watched Wild Robot, beautiful. Flow, I thought was even better. That's an animated movie that's up for an Oscar. I don't know if it's going to win, but there's no dialogue. It follows a cat through a crazy journey. It's on Max.
Tiffany did not like it.
You did not?
That played in Fairfield.
Yeah, it played.
Ago.
It played here, Iowa City. It played everywhere, and I turned it on, and Nikki was just in the room while I was watching it, and then 10 minutes in, she's on the edge of the couch, oh no, she's yelling at the screen, oh god, oh god. But yeah, it's been. I'm sort of glad I watched all these Oscar movies, but also sort of glad to have them in the past, just because it's a lot. But it is sort of funny to go from Nickel Boys and Wicked to Bat movie back to The Brutalist, a 4-hour artsy movie, to another Bat movie. And anyways, that's what I watched.
All right. Thank you, Tad. So let's get into, speaking of Bat movies, let's get into our topic. Jason, what's our first Bat movie?
The first Bat movie tonight is from 1940. The Devil Bat.
When an animal attacks a human, there's bound to be a lot of noise.
But I, as a scientist, take many things into consideration a layman might overlook.
Ever smelled anything like this before? Found it in Don Morton's bathroom.
Well, yes. That's the same stuff that's been on every one of the Devil Bat's victims.
All 4 of the murdered people had this lotion on them when the devil bat struck.
Leighton, I'm afraid all these murders have affected your mind.
Now, my plan is to sit in the garden, and when the killer makes one of those power dives, I'll blast him.
Tonight you have work to do. It's time you were on your way.
Thankfully, evolution has been very speedy with the bat vocal cords since the 1940s. Anyway, Dr. Paul Carruthers, played by Bela Lugosi, is frustrated because he thinks his employers, Mary Heath and Henry Morton, have cheated him out of the company's profits. He decides to get revenge by altering bats to grow twice their normal size and training them to attack when they smell a perfume of his own making. He mixes the perfume into a lotion, which he offers as a gift to Mary and Henry. When they turn up dead, a newspaper reporter decides to investigate. The Devil Bat. Bela Lugosi stars. Yes, it's cool to see him in a movie where he's not a vampire. Well, he's still around bats. Yeah, it was first time watch for me. I kind of dug it. I liked it.
I fucking
Hell
love
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought it was good. I don't, a lot of these older films, I don't have a super great knowledge or haven't, it's not a lot of blank spots, sure. So to me, it's
That's why I
like,
love sneaking them into to our topics. Yeah.
it's like, I just makes me wonder what it was like in 1940 when it's like, what was the audience like? Is he always Dracula to the people then? Like, because that's all I
Pretty
see
much, yeah.
now.
That's
Yeah.
why he wound up making all these Poverty Row movies rather than being Universal's horror guy, because he had a big head during and after Dracula. Famously turned down Frankenstein because he didn't speak and was covered in makeup, and then wound up playing the monster later on anyway.
Yeah.
And basically wouldn't play ball, and Lon Chaney and Boris Karloff took all the good roles, and and he got stuck doing this stuff. But yeah, like you're saying that you're not as well versed in this stuff, and it's kind of fun when they pop up, and I appreciate Mike throwing these things in the list because I fucking love these movies. Like I don't know how many times I've seen this, but this movie's a blast. And also they're super easy to watch because they're usually an hour or maybe
Yeah.
a little over, but
Yeah, that helps. And they're so, based, they just feel like plays. They're like,
Right,
they're
yeah.
still early enough that they're like trying to be cinematic because they're learning how to be cinematic and what that even means in those times back then. And it's fun watching that develop.
Well, the intertitle that opens this is basically serves as the first act.
Yeah.
It sets up all the plot, all the shit that would have cost money to have people reading the dialogue. It's like, we can just have the audience read this in 10 seconds and then
Yep,
we'll get on with
yep.
the story.
We saved about 30 minutes. Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I love this one too. I just have a love for Bella, so I don't know if there's such thing as a bad Bella Lugosi movie to me. Yeah, he's done a lot of bad stuff that was even considered bad back then, but yeah, and so Brian brought up the term Poverty Row, and I put that in my notes to just let people know what that means. Poverty Row is a term that was used for small studios that made films between the 1920s and the 1950s, usually with pretty small budgets. And this one was done by Producers Releasing Corporation, or PRC. And this was a very young studio at the time. I believe this was probably even their first film. A lot of the studios that were part of the Poverty Row were kind of either on or around Gover Street back in the day. So that's where the term Poverty Row comes from. It's just a lot of small little independent studios that were popping up during this time and making stuff super cheap and throwing them in theaters. And Bela Lugosi was a guy that couldn't get the studio work anymore, so he just did a lot of stuff with different Poverty Row studios.
Yeah, I have some stuff in the trivia about some of that later, but
Okay.
I've actually seen this one in the theater because I played it at the Capitol.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I was like, I think one year for Halloween, it was like we had like no money. It was like public domain as much as you can, and I was like, fuck yeah, what does Bella have? Let's just do like a bunch of Bela Lugosi stuff. And
All of them?
right. And I saw this one and I'm like, I've never even heard of it, but Devil Bat, that sounds cool as shit. And this is like a blast with a crowd. That, just in a classic theater around Halloween. It's a big, stupid looking bat. It's so much fun. I mean, you know what you're in for. It lives up to the title. It's quick and simple. The score is fun. It looks like it's, they're using props from other movies. It's, just hearing the trailer, like you hear those pops and the little bit of fuzz on the audio. It's just something about it. It gives me the warm fuzzies. It's just, this is a fun old creature movie, and it actually lives up to Devil Bat. I mean, it's a cool ass title. I'm surprised there probably is a dozen punk bands named after this movie. Rob Zombie's probably used 100% of the audio across his 40 albums.
Yep.
And probably used the footage in 12 of his music videos. But yeah, I love this one. Just think it's a blast. I was excited to see it on the list, and there's a pretty decent. I think it's Kino has a
Kino
pretty
Lorber
decent
Blu-ray. Yep. I listened to the commentary track to brush up for this. Although the commentary is mostly, it's not so much trivia as it is dissecting the film itself and kind of defending it, because of course, as with all Poverty Row movies, more detractors than fans, at least vocally. But and if you can't get enough of this, it was also remade about 10 years later with George Zucco in the Bela Lugosi role as the Flying Serpent, where it's got this weird, it's supposed to be Quetzalcoatl, but it's not. It's just this weird little feathery lizard thing that kills people instead of the big bat. It's not nearly as good as this.
Want to thank Erica from Unsung Horrors, who has introduced me to the concept of the category of fake bats in movies.
Oh my god.
She loves her a rubber bat.
Yes.
We're going to have to start they're going to need to start collecting royalties every time.
Oh, I know, right? So that's always something in my conscious now when I'm watching movies like this, and this is probably my all-time favorite fake bat in a movie.
How could they have thought that was good?
They
1940.
didn't. Did you not hear the part about Poverty Row? They were not trying to be
pretend
good.
to like flap it when he's carrying it to the other room. It's like, this is a pancake died on the floor last week bat.
I gotta say though, for 1941, for no budget, for lack of effort, those scenes are kind of cool with the giant bat flying through the air.
Oh, totally.
And
I'm
kind of
fine with
impressive
those.
under the circumstances.
It's literally that thing hanging in that room. It's like,
Oh yeah. That.
and then
upside
they cut to not even the same picture, stock footage of a bat head upside down. I'm like, it's Blondie. These are different colored bats that you're in the same scene you're cutting to. I'm like, what? Terrible, but also, yeah,
Awesome. Also got to love a horror movie where the plot is a mad scientist that is involved in making perfume.
Oh yeah, right.
So, yeah. So awesome! Glad to hear that we all love this one. That we all
Something
enjoy
I
this
was
one.
surprised to learn was they mentioned just Iowa in the commentary, and this is what when we were doing the bonus episode, or maybe it was right before the bonus episode, and you guys heard me go, "Holy shit!" Because I made a note to look up where in Iowa. So Guy Usher, the actor who played Henry Morton, guy who does the commentary on the Kino Blu-ray, said he was an Iowa-born actor, blah, blah, blah. So I just had in my notes, Guy Usher, born in Iowa, look up more information. So I was looking him up. I'd completely forgotten to do that while I was transcribing my notes. So I was doing that right before we started recording. Not only is he from Iowa, he was born in Mason City, Iowa.
Whoa!
Which, for all you out there in podcast listening land,
your
that's where I'm
house.
from.
He lived
So
in your
now,
house.
he's right. He might have been. This house
The
is
bones are
well,
in your basement.
no,
The
that's
bat
not.
is in the attic.
Couldn't possibly have been. He was old when this house was built, even. But so now we have Guy Usher and Del Tenney, the director of Horror of Party Beach, and Richard Tierney, creator of the Simon of Gitta sword and sorcery character.
And Brian Clark.
Man, no fair. All we have is Tom Arnold.
I know. He got ripped off.
And he sucks.
I loved in this movie when he was like, when they first confronted him and he's just like, fuck yeah, I made this perfume. He just fessed right up to the first level.
Tom Arnold.
No, the Bella in this. It was. I thought it was badass. Like
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, what about it? I made some perfume.
I also forget every time. I always forget how tall Bella was until you see those scenes where he's towering above the entire cast.
Yeah, he
standing
was like
outside.
6'1" or 6'2" at his, before he got old and kind of hunched over and everything. He was, I mean, he's not as tall as Jason, but
Yeah, but he was just in some of those scenes. He's just towering over the rest of the cast. I always forget that he was a tall man because I'm used to hunched over Bella.
right.
Tall,
Yeah.
tall, dark, and handsome.
So Tad, before I steal anything else from you, do you have anything about Arthur Bryan or Suzanne Karen in your trivia?
I do.
You do? Okay. Well, I'll let you do that then.
I'll when I read my trivia, then we'll go to you, because I'm sure you got some stuff from the commentary that you've got one part of my trivia already.
What's that?
You got to like one little thing in my trivia, but it's only part of a bigger thing.
The Guy Usher thing?
The reboot.
Flying Serpent. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go to that then. Tad, what trivia do you have for Devil Bat?
This movie was one of the biggest successes for Poverty Row Producer Releasing Corporation, PRC. After the war, the studio tried to recapture the success by producing an in-name only sequel, Devil Bat's Daughter, and as Brian mentioned, a shot-for-shot remake, The Flying Serpent. Because it was produced by Poverty Row Studio, PRC, which failed to renew its copyright, the film is now public domain, which is why it's frequently run on late night TV and is available home video for multiple distributors, often in very poor quality. So every horror host has shown this one, obviously. And then Arthur Q. Bryan's role as editor, Joe McGinney, provided him with what is now his most famous credited on-screen role. If his voice sounds familiar, it's because he was the original voice of Elmer Fudd for Warner Brothers.
There you go.
Whoa.
Oh, was that it?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to add there, Brian?
Oh, yeah. So Suzanne Karen, who plays Mary, the lead actress in the thing, she lived at 100 Central Park South in New York City, and in a rent-controlled apartment. Now, that building was bought and meant to be demolished and turned into condos by an infamous shit heap real estate developer turned U.S. President Donald Trump. She fought him in court when he tried to evict her, and she won.
Sweet.
So it was ruled that anyone who was living there rent-controlled could not be evicted, and so she got to live out her days there and gave that fucking Cheeto-dusted Hitler piece of shit the middle finger for the rest of her life. She also...
Devil rat.
Yep. She also invented and held a patent for a while on the pop-top can. But I did not have time to dig into how this exactly happened, but somehow the patent was taken out from under her. Like, she got screwed on a business deal and basically had to give up that patent. So she could have been a gajillionaire and wasn't, but...
Nice.
Yeah, very cool. Moving on. Brian, what's our next film?
The next film is 1979's Nightwing.
What is it that you fear the most? Is it the dark? Or is it something that waits in the dark? Something so perfect in its evil that it has remained unchanged since the beginning of time. Something that has no fear of man. Something out there, waiting for the light to fade. Nightwing.
Let Chief find out what bled your animal to death. Made bite marks no one's ever seen. And left a stink of ammonia.
It filled the sky. It was like the end of the world.
And each species of life gives something in return for its own existence. All but one, a freak. The vampire bat alone is that species.
Youngman Duran, who is a deputy police officer on the Hopi Indian Reservation in New Mexico, is investigating cattle mutilations at the same time that one of their tribal council chairmen is discovered oil shales and is trying to dynamite a series of caves in a valley that is sacred to the Hopi. And this releases a flock of vampire bats who are carrying bubonic plague, the bats may or may not have been released by Abner, who is a medicine man who is trying to stop the capitalists from destroying the valley. It's a whole thing. So, Native Americans were, their representation in pop culture was changing at between the 60s and the 70s. Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman, and another movie called Soldier Blue came out in 1970, and Billy Jack in 1971, and that kind of marked the shift in the portrayal of Native Americans. Billy Jack was actually the second film to feature that character, the first being Born Losers in 1967. I promise this is going somewhere. Tom Laughlin had been trying to get Billy Jack made since the 50s and used the popularity of biker movies as a sort of backdoor pilot for that character. So this has been going on for a little while. Now, the movie Nightwing is based on a novel by the same name by a guy named Martin Cruz Smith, who also was one of the writers on the screenplay. And he was mostly known as a mystery writer, but his own Native American background led him to write this novel. His mother, Louise Lopez, was of Pueblo descent and was a very ardent Native American rights activist. And it's... They kind of cut some of the stuff that makes it a little more leaning toward the side of Abner. Like, there's more supernatural stuff in the original material that left out from the movie, where it may actually be Abner conjuring this. The movie plays it more like Abner knew about the bats and is just using this knowledge to sort of trick the oil company into their own demise, sort of thing. Like, he wants to bring about the end of the world, so he's going to unleash this colony of bats that's carrying bubonic plague. And Abner is played by George Clooney, who was in another great eco-horror movie from the 70s. He's also Mirai in Prophecy, the old Native American guy who goes out to meet the mutant bear and gets his face bit off in the middle of the lake. Carlo Rambaldi made the bats, and they're really great bat puppets in this. And then this is Arthur Hiller, the director. It's his only horror movie, but he also directed the first episode of The Addams Family.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is... it kind of falls under, it's a little bit eco-horror with the anti-oil angle. It's a little bit Animal Attack with the bats with the bubonic plague. It's, kind of edges right up to the line of being a supernatural horror thing, but then kind of dials it back. But it's a really interesting interplay between all these different characters and the councilman who wants the oil shale thing's kind of betraying his people. You've got the deputy who's trying to protect his people, but at the same time is trying to enforce contemporary American law. And then you've got Abner, who's just completely pushing back against all of this and wants to go back to the old ways. It could be maybe it's a little meandering in places. It could be tightened up a bit, but I think overall this is probably the most thoughtful and interesting movie of tonight's triple feature. What do you guys think?
I've just been waiting for you to finish so I could say David Warner is in everything, including Doctor Who.
Yes, he is.
God damn it.
But I reckon, right when I see him, I'm like, I'm in, because he's one of those character actors that's been in so fucking much. I mean, he's passed now, but like, I think of him from The Omen and Straw Dogs, and I could go. This could be a whole. You could do 3 episodes just on him, the movies he's in. He's
fucking amazing. David Warner could make Tommy Wiseau dialogue sound natural.
Yeah,
he's just that good.
He's fantastic. And then Stephen Mock from Monster Squad, he's in this as well. And he is like, he was born in 1942. He was at Nightmare Weekend last year, and he still looks exactly the same. And he's still spry as shit. And man, he had some interesting things to say on stage. He's very outspoken, and I was already a fan, but I mean that dude too. He's in Amityville, It's About Time, and Graveyard Shift, and he's in a lot of shit too. So it's just cool to see. Like, I've never heard of Nightwing, and I'm like, I know him. Oh, it's like one of those IMDb dreams where you're like, I know everybody. Everybody's a great character actor, and they're all firing on all cylinders. And it's not like. Yeah, it's not like one is like you must see, but it's pretty damn good, man.
And you got boozy old Struther Martin as the convenience store owner. Like it'd be a good double feature. This and where he's the mad scientist who makes the snake person.
Sweet. Yeah, I dug this too. This was also a first time watch. Never really heard of it before. This one has just kept popping up on lists every time I come up with a topic, because we did the Native American topic several episodes ago, and this one popped up then. Obviously, once you see it, you realize why. But yeah, there's kind of some moments where I felt like it drug on a little bit. But being a 70s Animal Attacks fan, eco horror fan, I really dug it. Again, and then when it comes to like the bad effects, that stuff was a lot of fun. I will take 1970s, try every effects trick in the book and see what works and what doesn't work, and what doesn't work we'll leave it in the film anyway, versus just bored CGI stuff.
Right.
Yep.
And it's somehow has better rubber bats than the next movie.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into that.
Come on.
We'll get into that.
I've never seen so many ripped bats. They're just swole, man. They're badass. Anyway, that's the next movie.
Badass.
You haven't said anything yet.
So for me on this one, I have to thank Brian. First of all, the first movie we watched, The Devil Bat, watched it on YouTube. YouTube is about to make me mad because it's all fucking ads.
Oh yeah,
at least you can skip them after a while, but still, it's every 5 minutes.
In our personal chat, Brian just rips this movie because he's watching it on YouTube, and I'm like, I'm already mad from the night before we watched Devil Bat. So the night we're watching this, 2 minutes. I went and I stopped and looked.
Yep.
We weren't even to the second credit yet, and there was a motherfucking ad. So
dude, I'll watch a 10-minute video, somebody reviewing a comic book or whatever, and there's it cuts 3 or 4 times for ads. This is 10 minutes.
I just knew it was gonna ruin the movie, so I went to Prime, and it was the best $3.59 I've ever fucking spent, because one, I mean, it was better quality, but uninterrupted. I was like, I fucking loved this movie. I thought it was awesome.
Good. Cool.
That by far my favorite of the night.
Interesting.
I love Native American stuff. I always have since I was a little kid, and Boy Scouts growing up. Even when I was in college, I took a Native American class with my mom. I got to be in the same class with my mom. Anyway, always loved it. And then just the 70s, and it was awesome. I thought the story was really cool, the eco stuff, and
and it helps that with Martin Cruz Smith's background and being part Native American himself, it's not, it doesn't feel condescending. I mean, it does still a little bit because it's still a 1970s Hollywood movie, right?
Yep.
But there's that gets dialed back a lot, and it feels a little more I don't know, honest, I guess, and not gross and exploitative.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Totally. And I loved wacky ass Abner. He was nuts.
Yeah, George Clooney is awesome.
And definitely with the supernatural, because I'm like, he's talking to the ghost at the end. You're like trying to fight him and shit. It was awesome. But yeah, it was cool. I liked it a lot. I know more about bat pee smells from tonight's movies. God dang. Anyway, I really liked this one a lot.
Excellent. All right, what trivia do you have for this one, Tad?
The interiors of the Vampire Bat Cavern, which are featured in the film's grand finale, was a set construction standing 60 feet tall, built on Stage 16 soundstage at Burbank Studios in Hollywood, California. The Texas filming location of Bracken Cave near San Antonio, which was used by documentary filmmaker David Saxton to shoot real footage of real bats for the film, was the same site that he had used for his National Geographic television special on bats entitled Strange Creatures of the Night from 1973. This earlier program had been narrated by Leslie Nielsen, who later starred as the title character of Mel Brooks' vampire spoof Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Oh, boy.
And then the final piece I have is Columbia Pictures spent a sizable portion of the film's budget hiring Oscar-winning special effects master Carlo Rambaldini. He did E.T. and...
Just Rambaldi.
Rambaldi. He did E.T. and the 1976 King Kong to create believable, terrifying bats. Since they realized they would be the key to film being a box office hit, what they got for their money were creatures that looked exactly like what they were, battery-powered rubber bats mounted on poles that were incapable of looking or moving anything like actual bats. As a result, the film proved to be a major disappointment.
I thought the bats looked pretty good, but also Carlo Rambaldi sucks. Not like I'm not saying his effects are bad. I'm saying he as a person. Well, like he is kind of much like Bud Westmore taking the credit for the Creature from the Black Lagoon suit. And I get that like the head of any effects studio is going to put their name on things, but like he was notorious for actually not being a good craftsman at all. And then like one of his people would build something really cool and be like, "Oh yeah, I did that." But then, like, when the big King Kong robot fucked up, he'd blame all his people on it and not take any of the blame.
Bastard.
Yeah.
All right. So, Tad, what is our next film?
Bats.
There's a biological emergency.
What kind of biological emergency?
Bats.
What are you guys experimenting with?
They're very, special.
What exactly did you do to them?
Houston, we got a problem.
Then you made them aggressive. Bats can be anywhere in a 100-mile radius.
We got a bunch of rabid bats on the loose?
They've somehow increased their natural intelligence.
Are you saying some kind of bat did this?
Bats do not kill people.
The perfect killing machines.
Oh, God, there's too many. Come on, let's go!
Never seen anything like this before. Put my bats anywhere in the world and they will feed.
They'll kill every living thing in Gallup County.
So what do we do now?
We got a problem. Looks like all this time them damn things have been making their way directly towards town. Now that's bad.
They're coming.
But I don't like anything moving higher up the food chain than me.
You know how many people have died?
Evacuate the town immediately. Well, you may as well just say so long to that nice little balance of nature thing we had going.
Those things are killing people in my town.
Millions of years of evolution. Arrogance to think that you could do better.
I'm a scientist. That's what we do.
Sir, based on the nature of these creatures, I strongly suggest that we wait for daybreak.
You don't need to tell me how dangerous they are, man. They simply need to be controlled.
I tell you, I'm not gonna let them blow my town off the face of the earth without a fight.
The small Texas town of Gallup, great fake name, is threatened by bats created by a loopy scientist. They have become infected with a virus that increases both their intelligence and aggression. Only a zoologist and the redneck sheriff can save the town, but as night falls, the menace mounts. I've owned this movie on DVD for like 20 years. My mom bought it for me, and I was like, oh shit, I own this movie. And I looked on the shelf, and it's still in the wrapper. So happy unwrapping, but I've seen it before. I think elsewhere, maybe on VHS. I remember Lou Diamond Phillips. He's so young and handsome in this movie. This one's just dumb fun. You know, we have like a great spread of movies here. We have campy 40s black and white Bela Lugosi. We have Nightwing, which is a little more serious 70s. And then we just have like the prime bad time for CGI. Not quite as bad as like the Scorpion King or anything. The bat, there's it's hit or miss with the bat scenes in this one.
It's like borderline Birdemic bad, dude.
Yeah,
Come on.
no, I wouldn't say that bad. But at least it's like it's dumb fun. Like you turn off your brain and watch this one. The plot's very simple. It's the same as every Animal Attack movie. You know, the mad scientist fucks with the animal he shouldn't. It becomes
they didn't close down the beach.
It comes a problem, and then they have to figure it out. And I fucking love the scene when they're like descending on the town and taking out everyone. Yeah, that is just so much fun. It's just so simple, so dumb, and they put themselves in that cage and they're trying to come through. There's a lot of great scenes in this. Again, just this is like prime, like turn off your brain popcorn movie. I'm on board for all these. This is a fun episode.
It was. I saw this one in the theater. Yeah, and I feel like I rented it or watched it on cable or not cable, satellite, whatever, a couple of times, but I hadn't seen it in forever. And it was funny when this episode came up. It was like, I'd actually been meaning to give this one another look anyway, so it was a good excuse. And man, it's absolutely a turn your brain off, paint by numbers popcorn movie to the point where it feels like the script was written by a random cliche generator. Like not a single line in this movie sounds like something an actual person would say. It sounds so clunky and unnatural. Like it was, you go into like a word processor and select a template for something you want to write. It's like they did that and then just didn't change anything. It's just the raw fucking template. That said, David Warner could still make this dialogue sound believable, but no one in this movie can.
Nope. Well, it might
but it's
help
still fun.
too if Lou Diamond Phillips can hold on to his accent to the movie.
God.
Yeah. And the little rubber bats are adorable.
Yeah.
The big ones, like
that's what
I
you
love
want
how,
out of your horror movie.
Right.
I love how they insist like they're flying foxes. Like the fuck they are. First of all, flying foxes are super cute. Like they look like puppies with wings. I would cuddle a flying fox.
Mike says no.
Yeah.
The big bats in this look like ghoulies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do. More than they
Like
should.
they have these big goofy sculpted scowls and like everything in this movie is absolutely silly as fuck. But
They're like little bodybuilders. They sort of look like the creatures from The Gate.
That too.
Yeah, a little bit like
with wings.
Yep.
Well, I've been so excited about this episode when I saw this movie was on here because it's a first time watch for me, and it's because of Mike. Since 1999, he has been ripping on this movie and completely
stealing my thunder here.
made me not want to watch this. And like, it's not that I don't listen, but like, you've been ranting about this since 1999.
Have I?
Really?
And I'm
not
like,
cooled off
it's
on
not
this?
good, but it's not
Oh,
worth like
dude.
30 years worth of anger.
I'll get to it.
Yeah, so like, I knew I was just the things you said, what I could remember, and then applying it to what I finally am watching. I was like, is it going to be as bad as I think he thought it was? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't hate it. It was not good, and I love Lou Diamond Phillips a lot, but I was so goddamn pissed at him for that fucking accent. It was so stupid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Horrible choice.
I love him, but
How do you know that was his fault? It could have been the director.
You're
said, like,
sure.
hey,
You're
do
not
an
wrong.
accent.
You're
Sure.
right. Sure.
It's just like, dang it.
I would think the quality of an actor that Lou Diamond Phillips is, that it probably wasn't his decision, and was probably bitter about it, or else he would have been consistent with it throughout the movie.
Yeah, it was just such a bummer because I like him so much. I thought Dina Meyer did great too. She's done good stuff. I thought she was awesome as the leading lady in this, and it was yes, a turn your brain off, not because it's not really that good, but I somehow sort of kind of enjoyed it. So now I feel kind of bad because I'm like I'm always Team Mike, and so I couldn't wait to go see what his Letterboxd review was, and it was pretty tame because he's like, I'm just going to tell you on the episode, come the episode, and I'm like, all right. So I couldn't wait to finally put 1999 ranting Mike's hate and get some closure on it with this finally getting to watch it. So I kind of liked it, but it's not good. And hey, Mike, what do you think? It also has
basically the exact same end as Nightwing, where they're trying to detonate a thing in the bat's lair.
Well, yeah, and I know Mike from his Letterboxd review doesn't like the ending. But anyway, I was just so. How long has it been since you watched this?
Since 1999.
Okay, so how was it?
Just like Brian, I too saw this in the theater.
Yep.
I hated it. I was so pissed when I walked out of that theater. Hated it. The Lou Diamond Phillips accent thing just took me so out of the film. The biggest problem I had with it, and still have with it, is that 90s, fucking gonna use bad words now, crappy, extreme, close-up, shaky cam, super fast fucking editing where you can't see shit.
Or the weird sideways stretch.
Oh, yeah, what is that? What is
so
that?
So much of that. That was like a 90s
Even
thing,
on shots that didn't need that.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Is this supposed to be the bat's POV? What is this?
Ratio was set right.
Yes, I know. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I just hate that freaking MTV overly stylized music video editing. You know, all the bad
was the black guy supposed to be funny?
That's a great question.
That is a good question.
Like, he seems like he was supposed to be the comic relief character, but it was just like, have the black guy say things in a sarcastic tone.
Yeah.
And that's comedy.
Yeah.
Well, he started crushing on her and then didn't end up, he just like, that wasn't a thing at the end, whatever.
Anyway, yeah, so hated it back then, but I still kind of hate it now. Jason did bring up my Letterboxd review. I will just read it here real quick. I hated this when I first saw it. It didn't get a whole lot better with time. I just think my immunity to crap has grown over the years.
Yeah.
So, which is true. So I probably am not as hateful on it now as I was then, but maybe for different reasons, because I feel like I'm even more annoyed by the editing now.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the filmmaker in me. With that, and that's the blind man in me as well that can't make out half the things that I see on the screen anyway. And then when you do freaking editing like that, then I'm like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. And I'm come to this movie to see bats attack people, and I don't get to see that. It's there.
It's happening.
It's happening. The camera is in front of that action. It's not like it's happening off screen. It's just it makes no goddamn sense in the editing. And one of the things, and this is probably a quote from me back then, that was so mad about this movie when I walked out of it, is just like, I am a man who is deathly afraid of bats, and this movie didn't make me wince once.
Yeah.
That is the sign of like a bad horror movie. Anyway. Also, too, they, at the third act there, they hold up in an old school building. Like, that's going to be a safe haven to stay away from keeping bats out. Like, old school buildings are the worst.
Yeah.
My old junior high school, before they tore it down, I remember we couldn't take a shower after gym class. Why? Because there was goddamn bats in the showers.
Oh, my Lord. And where'd you get all that fencing?
And this is right?
What?
This is a movie where bats can crawl into your car through the exhaust pipe, but an old abandoned school is going to be safe. Yep.
But they put duct tape on things.
Yeah. They should have used bat tape.
I really liked the concept of the two like smarty bats, the leader bats. Just the idea of them like getting smart, when they shot the one bat with the tracker thing, and they're like, "Nope, we're on to you.
So the other bats
Fuck
just
this."
rip the bat apart to get rid of.
They're
the
like
tracker.
hanging out to make sure shit goes right or not right, and like just the thought of them being bigger, but then having a brain to them, I'm like, "What? That's kind of cool."
Yeah,
I like that.
I do like that in my animal attack movies, where the creatures just start getting smarter and smarter, and eventually start outwitting the humans. That's always a lot of fun. This movie should have ended like The Bees, where the bats just talk to him at the end.
God, that movie is. We should do a bee episode just so we can do that movie, or Killer
Back
Bug.
on the
I don't
animals,
know.
Yep.
Because The Bees is so much fun. Anyway.
I love The Bees, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, wasn't that also a movie where John Saxon was doing karate?
Yes.
Okay, just making
And
sure.
it has John Carradine, too.
That's right, yeah. All right, what trivia do you have for bats?
There's an insane amount, but I tried to narrow it down. The bats in the film were a combination of animatronic, CGI, and 2 live bats. The 2 original bats in the film were brought over from Indonesia. And I'm adding this, probably responsible for COVID. With a final budget of $5.25 million, the film recouped it all in its first week in theaters. It grossed well over $30 million worldwide in theatrical, DVD, digital, and television sales. Produced in just over 5 months, the picture continues to hold one of the top spots for fastest produced 35mm feature film from script to screen to receive a wide release. So check out the schedule. Pre-production.
That would explain why the script seems so...
Yes. Check this out.
This
is pretty incredible. Pre-production. Script acquired, director hired May 1999. Production June and July 99. Post-production, including 250 plus visual effects, scored and mixed August and September 99 and released October 22nd, 1999 to 3,000 screens.
That's not normal.
Yeah, holy shit. They hired a director in May and had it on screen in October.
Jesus.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Yeah. That's Takashi Miike level of production
Right?
there.
Let's say, yeah, that's like a Japanese shooting schedule.
Lou Diamond Phillips and Dina Meyer had a 5-year contract with Destination Films in case of a possible sequel. But that contract expired in 2004, while the sequel Bats 2: Human Harvest would just begin production in 2006 to premiere a year later. So there is a
Which is
sequel.
funny because the movie itself kind of steps on the idea of a sequel, but we'll get to that in a later segment.
And then 15 puppeteers participated in the film that handled each of the 30 bat puppets. That's my trivia.
Oh, yeah.
And what was the bat's workout routine? Did you have that in there? Because I want some of that. God dang.
It was
Buff
all
bats.
shoulder day and no leg day.
All right, so now on to our newest little segment here. It's the kill of the episode. What is your favorite kill from the films that we watched for this episode? Brian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, since I kind of set it up already.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite, my favorite kill of the episode is the very end of Bats, when after they've blown up Batcave, and it seems like everything is going to be okay, and then they do the there might be a sequel thing where one of the two evil bats crawls its way up out of the dirt, and then they just fucking run it over. They're like, nope, never mind, the movie's over. Go home.
That
now.
is probably the one moment of the movie that I actually kind of liked and chuckled at. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
That's awesome. Jason, what's yours?
Mine might be, I just talked about it too, also from Bats. I really liked that when those 2 bats went after the tagged bat and just cut him in half. And then Lou Diamond
And you
was
see its
just like,
wings splat on the ground.
oh, yeah. And then didn't Lou Diamond Phillips have some smart ass thing as he's walking away. Now you can get your bats or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway. But I'm like, I love that.
Tad?
I'm probably breaking the rule, but the bat attack on the town in general.
Oh, yeah.
Because a bunch of people die, but it's like just a culmination. Because we don't know any of these characters. They're just like townspeople. But I just love the idea of bats attacking small town in Texas. Now it would just be like everyone has a fucking gun, and it would be over in 2 minutes.
I like how so far everybody's least favorite movie of the night
I'm
has
waiting to see
favorite
what Mike, if
kills.
he's going to pivot.
I'm going to pivot because I refuse to give Bats
come
any
on.
award. No, I'm going with in Nightwing. So I love in animal attack movies where it becomes kind of a series of unfortunate events that lead to a kill that the animals actually didn't have anything to do with. So for me, it's the campfire scene in Nightwing, which was kind of epic, but kind of hilarious at the same time, where one person is running away from the bats and runs through the fire and then gets totally engulfed in fire. Another one tries crawling under the car, but only gets halfway before the car takes off and gets completely run over. I love that stuff. So that's the campfire scene in Nightwing is probably
where it's just like human stupidity and panic mode that causes the death.
That causes the deaths. Like the bats didn't even have anything to do with it. Well, other than freaking everybody out.
Right.
So that's it. That's our favorite kills from this episode. Man, nobody picked anything from Devil Bat.
I mean, the kills are pretty tame.
We're
the movie overall is a great vibe, but the kills aren't particularly memorable.
It's all pretty much off screen anyway, right?
Yeah.
So that's it for
fucking
this.
Hays Code.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it for this topic. However, there's still more Attack of the Killer podcasts to come. Now we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to finish off the show with our last 2 segments. But first, you're going to hear a promo for our podcast network called the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. The PFPN is home to so many great shows, such as the exciting return of First Time Podcast with their 2025 Oscars episode. So remember that first time you saw that movie that changed your life? Remember how you couldn't wait until school the next day to tell your friends about it? Well, this podcast is sort of like that, but we're telling everyone about our first time experience. So you can check out First Time Podcast. You need to, because this new episode is epic. And check out all the other shows at thepfpn.com. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back, and now it's time to hear from you guys, the listeners. Here's Jason with shout-outs.
It's time for shout-outs! 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 Shout-outs!
All right, we asked, what are your favorite Bat horror movies? And we got some good responses over on the Facebook page. We got Attacker Casey Kelderman from Screams from the Basement podcast says, Dracula Dead and Loving It. And then posted a gif of a face on a bat. All right, geez.
An unfairly maligned Mel Brooks movie. I mean, I get that it's not amongst his greats, but I still like that one.
Overly hated.
Yeah.
Being a big Mel Brooks fan, not a big fan of that one. I think I still like it more than Robin Hood Men in Tights. It's probably one's probably one of my least favorites. We could get into it later, but I have my reasons for Men in Tights, and I can share with that later. But I just think the problem with Dracula Dead and Loving It is, I remember going into this movie, it's like, yeah, this guy did Young Frankenstein, where he really captured the feel of those old Frankenstein movies. Even High Anxiety, he was really trying to capture the feel of Alfred Hitchcock movies. And then Dracula Dead and Loving It just felt like another
just a spoof.
Excuse for Leslie Neal to do more pratfalls.
Did you realize Leslie Nielsen's not funny? Cool.
Leslie Nielsen is extremely funny when he plays it serious, and that's the problem with the later Leslie Nielsen is. It was all just pratfalls and goofy faces.
Surely you can't be serious.
All right. Moving on. We got Attacker Scott Reebsman. I remember really liking Bats with Lou Diamond Phillips when I was younger. I should really rewatch that soon.
Yeah,
you should.
And I was going to do this up front when we did the Attacker thing, and I forgot, but I want to point out that Scott is starting up a thing here in Mason City called Cinema Stomp. which is going to be, I think it's going to be a monthly. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, March 8th, Saturday, is the first of the Cinema Stomp showings. He's going to debut with Miami Connection. So it's going to be a sort of psychotronic film screening thing at Bricks Wine and... Was it Wine and Whiskey? I don't know. Anyway.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what makes it not just a normal screening?
What do you mean?
Well, it's like a... You said it's some kind of experience. What
Psychotronic. It's
what does that
weird
mean?
cinema. Weird cinema screenings here in Mason City. It's a big deal. It's cool.
I just didn't know if there was like some kind of extra element. Like I love it. I just thought maybe you were
just
like,
come see weird movies here in Mason City. In a town where fucking nothing interesting ever happens.
It's fantastic.
Scott is spearheading.
I didn't know that
cool
word, so I
cinema
thing.
thing.
Maybe like it was like playing live music to it or something.
You'll have to take
psychotronic's
acid before you
just
do
kind
it.
of a term for movies of that ilk.
Up next, we got Trevor Micklin. He says, The Devil Bat. It's a good one. It's a good one. Over in our Facebook group, we got Lisa from the Bad Movie Buddy podcast. She says, the 1999 Bats movie. I rewatched it a few years ago, and it probably could have been set in places like Kerrville and Fredericksburg, Texas, even though the script made a fictional Texas town. San Antonio even had a few bats in parking garages before the 2021 freeze. Got a little info. That's cool. Up next, we got Attacker Hot Rod Hutchinson says, so last year it was color episodes. Now we're doing animal attack horror. Maybe the next episode will be killer crabs. I've heard there are some great killer crab movies like Cocaine Crabs from Outer Space.
Oh, dude, we could do crabs. I already got two of them in my brain that we could do. That would be great.
Rob,
Queen
you're not
Crab,
helping.
which was done by a guy who made a movie
See,
when we did a Rats episode years and years ago.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it. You remember this, Mike?
What was it?
Weird ass. We did a Rats episode back in my initial run as a full-time host.
Yeah.
And it was like a really weird shot on video, super low budget dystopian future rat movie.
Scratch, I think, was the name of it.
Yeah. But anyway, that guy made a crab movie. So
you also have like what's it? Was it
Island Claws?
Was that
Island Claws?
Island Claws. That's the one. That movie's great too. Awesome.
Killer Crab Rangoon. I love that one.
Oh, God. This is what happens, Ron. Stay tuned. He says, I'm sure that one is much better than Crackoon. Well, it has to be.
Anything's better.
And then lastly, we got Attacker Godzilla says, Killer Crabs should be the name of the movie discussing Rod's sex life. All the Bubble Boys are at it again. Oh, my gosh.
What goes on in the bubbles stays in the bubbles.
But we got a voicemail today, fellas, and it's not from either of the Bubble Boys. Here we go. It's Bill.
Hey, everybody. Attacker Bill here, just calling in to talk about this week's topics, which apparently is bat movies. I'm just fucking kidding. Are you guys mad at us? Did we do something wrong? I mean, like, I tell people about the show. I mean, hell, maybe I'm a member of the Patreon, and I just don't understand what we did wrong. I mean, before it was colors, and then just random letters, and now raccoons, now bats. I mean, what are we just, like, throwing darts at the wall of a list of woodland creatures that are prone to rabies or something? Like, are we grounded? Are you mad at us? Anyway, I'm calling from work, so I thought I'd actually take some time to... Larry, relax. I'm in the bathroom at work, sorry. No crap outside, Larry. It's not like it's the first time. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to say that I guess the only things that really come to mind are the episode of Batman the Animated Series on Leather Wings that introduced Man-Bat is freaking awesome, and Graveyard Shift, which is hard to knock out because I love everything Stephen King's. Anyway, so I guess I'm here until the inevitable spaghetti horror episode. All right.
Yes.
Bye. I'm going to get drunk now.
Graveyard Shift rules. And yes, Bill, you're grounded. And next week is Woodchucks.
Oh my gosh. And you too, if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can give us a call at 415-952-6857. That's 415-95-AOTKP. Leave us that voicemail. We'll play it on the show. And that is shout-outs.
There once was a man from Otumwano whose friend had lots of toy Megatronos. Some called him insane, said he had bats in his brain, and the movies he picked were all guano.
After the sun has... Whoa, what? I wrote this down wrong.
Go ahead and start over, pal.
I'm gonna. You're not gonna edit it, but I'm gonna start over anyway. After the sun has gone down and the night winds have died, comes the hour of the Bat People. Bat People from 1974. Yes, I did another Bat movie.
Oh.
Another one that I feel like would have been better than at least one movie from this topic. The Bat People is an American horror movie directed by Jerry Jameson, who is also known for doing Airport 77, Superdome. He did a lot of TV movies and westerns. Here's the plot. Dr. John Beck and his wife get trapped in a cave, and John is bitten by a bat. Dr. Beck begins to transform into a half-man, half-bat creature that goes on a killing spree. Needless to say, this puts a damper on the Beck's vacation. The film is also known as It Lives by Night and was an episode of MST3K in 1999, Season 10, Episode 10. This movie is a lot of fun. It does kind of drag on in some scenes, but it's all worth it for the really cool Stan Winston full-on bat creature at the end. It's definitely noteworthy that this is one of the first films done by Stan Winston, and there's not a ton of like transformation scenes, just a lot of the guy kind of like rolling around in pain and then attacking people in the middle of the night. But it is all worth it for the super epic ending where the wife and the police detective trying to solve the murders are driving to where John Beck is hiding in his cave, and they are just attacked by bats. I don't know if any bats were harmed in this. I'm going to assume probably yes, because there was a ton of real bats in this scene. And so that could be a little off-putting for sure. But as far as bat attack scenes, this one is like, again, way better than any of the ones in any of the movies we talked about tonight. It was just really, there's like a scene where there's a shot, I guess I should say, where the detective is being attacked by bats into the car because the wife, she's gone kind of nutty at this point. She's like, goodbye, detective. And she opens the door and walks out. And as she walks out, just this flood of bats fill in through the passenger side door. And he's being just ripped to shreds by bats. But there's shots of him like in agony, bleeding, bats attacking him. But you could see there's like a real bat on the back of one of his hands. There's like a real bat attached to his face. And it just is so freaky and disturbing. Anyway, I gave away the ending, sorry. But anyway, I highly recommend checking out The Bat People from 1974.
Fine, I will.
Do it. And that is it for this episode of Attack of the Killer Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this one. Bill, you just wait. You wait till next time.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yep.
Damn you, Bill.
If you want more Attack of the Killer Podcast where we don't talk about bats and raccoons, you can check us out on X and YouTube and Instagram, Threads. We're on Discord, TikTok, Facebook. Be sure to go to jointheattackers.com, become an attacker. Go to thepfpn.com. You can listen to us there and all the other great shows. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. So many places you can find Attack of the Killer Podcast. But until then, we will talk to you guys next time on Attack of the Killer Podcast. See ya.
Oh no, could this be the end of? Attack of the Killer Podcast. Attack of